And let's welcome in Jason. Jason, before we talk Guardians, we were just talking LeBron and whether or not we think he'll throw himself a farewell tour. You know him better than all of us combined. Will LeBron throw himself a farewell tour, or is there any chance he will Tim Duncan it and just disappear into the sunset?
Of course he's throwing a farewell tour. Yes. Yes. LeBron loves to be loved, and he would not mind 29 different franchises and cities showing him how much they appreciate what he's done for the game. There will be a farewell tour, yes.
All right, so you're in agreement with all of us, Jason. Just wanted to get that on the record. You were out in Arizona for spring training, Jason. Have you had a chance to evaluate and or observe any differences yet in how Stephen Vogt's running the show as opposed to how Terry Francona had for so long with the Guardians?
It's real early out here. It's still in workout mode. Pitchers are throwing bullpens. They don't play games until I think this weekend is the first spring training game. So it's very early, but when you talk to people who have been part of the organization for years, there is a different vibe out here just because everything is new. It's not just Steven, it's a new bench coach, it's new hitting department for the most part. Chris Valleca is still here as a hitting coach, and Carl Willis is still here as a pitching coach, but that's it. And Carl, everybody is mentioning Carl as someone that they're really relying on. Carl's 61, 63 years old, something like that. His first year as pitching coach here with Cleveland, the first time around, Stephen Vogt was a senior in high school. So that just puts into perspective how long Carl's been doing this and how long he's been around. So, Carl carries a lot of weight around here and carries a very large voice and is relied on in terms of how to put this thing together. But it's just a different vibe. It's young. It's definitely younger. More energy involved, and I mean now they got to go out and compete, and obviously they got to perform well and win. But people are very much reinvigorated around here, and there's nothing against Tito. Obviously he's a legend, but after a while, it just becomes routine, and it becomes the same thing over and over and over again. And so it's an organization that probably needed an infusion of some new life and some new blood.
Jason, what's up, brother? First things first, man. I need a shot glass when you're on your way back to Cleveland. Second thing, so we was talking about this yesterday, and about the Dolans not spending money and wanting to see these young prospects develop to see what they have. And I was kind of irritated about it. I'm not the biggest baseball savant, but with Stephen Vogt in as the new manager, the second year playing under the new rules of MLB with this young infusion of talent, does this have the chance to be a better fit, a better mesh versus than what it was last year with Tito?
It's so hard to say. And to the point you're referencing about, some of the comments that Chris made a few days ago on they got to give a chance for the young guys to play. Well, they said that 2 years ago and it worked out to their favor. And that's when, they had to get a look at Stephen Kwan, and they had to get a look at some of these other younger players and see if they could help them. Andres Jimenez being another one, and see if they were part of the future here. And it worked to their advantage. And then last year they tried to get aggressive. They went into free agency and it blew up on them with Zunino and Josh Bell. So now here they are pivoting back to we got a bunch of young guys to play. The difference this time around, maybe I'm wrong, but when you look at Estevan Florial, Ramon Laureano is not a young guy by any means. Will Brennan probably is a fourth outfielder at best. I know Mike loves him, but it's probably his role is it's a fourth outfielder. So I don't know that you can make the same argument that you did 2 years ago. Now there are some other guys. If George Valera can ever get healthy and come up, he's a name that's been on prospect list for years. Kyle Manzardo will be here eventually, I think, as a first baseman DH type. I don't think it'll be right away. They'll probably start the year with him in the minors and bring him up around late April, early May, if I had to guess. But it is discouraging. I got a lot of thoughts on this. I haven't written about it yet. There's a lot I want to write on this, and I could probably talk a little bit more freely about it after I write about it. But it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and it feels like a lot of the teams this year could have done more and didn't.
Jason, one of the things that we had Will Brennan on the other day, and he made it seem like there was a major shift in the philosophy at the plate. Guys are going to be, trying to improve their power numbers. and I asked him this question: is that something that you either have or you don't? I see a lot of major league pitchers who are now increasing their velocity, 2-3 miles an hour. These guys all over the internet are doing that. Is that something that teams are working on now that can improve power, or do you believe that's just something you're either born with or you got it or you don't?
Well, it's really interesting you asked that because I'm actually working on a piece now on the decline in switch hitters in baseball, and it'll probably run in a few days. But this is the lowest number of switch hitters in baseball in 50 years, and if you look at American-born players, it's the lowest number in 60 years. And guys just aren't doing it anymore. And I was at Reds camp the other day, and I was talking to Eric Davis about it, and he said this. And he's a different generation, obviously, and he said that this is a generation that has lost the ability to hit, because everyone is just trying to hit the ball out of the park. And they changed the way that they teach how to hit. And it's all about launch angle, and it's all about hitting the ball out of the park. And one of the most popular hitting instructors on YouTube is a guy called Teacher Man, who taught Aaron Judge how to hit. and I'm like really into this now, right? Because I got a 13-year-old who's coming into this and taking baseball very seriously. So he's at the lab 3-4 days a week now, hitting baseballs and learning how to hit. And so I'm very much invested in this sort of thing. And I was talking to some players today who are like, Teacher Man did not teach Aaron Judge how to hit. Aaron Judge taught Aaron Judge how to hit. Aaron Judge had more to do with it than anybody else. But they teach this style now of snap your wrist and fly back and just hit up. And, Josh Naylor was saying back in AA or AAA, the Astros affiliate they were playing when Miles Straw was on that team, and Kyle Tucker was down there. And he said they didn't even take batting practice. They had these PVC pipes, and this is all they were doing. And he said they were mashing. And but it takes away. Eric Davis's point was you don't understand how to hit. You're not actually a good hitter. You're just trying to hit the ball out of the park. And Eric Davis was naming names. And he said Joey Gallo could still be playing in this league if he ever bothered to learn how to hit. If he could hit 270 and hit 10 to 12 home runs less a year, he'd play till he was 38, 39 years old. But he's out of the league already because all he ever tried to do was hit home runs. And so it's a long conversation with a lot of parts to this whole thing. But to answer your question, G, I don't, the guys I've talked to don't think it's coming back. Like, this is the way it is. And because of velocity, because the game has changed and everything else, everybody tries to hit the ball out of the park. And I don't know if we're ever going back to the Harvey Wallbanger days. Now the Guardians do things a little differently. The Guardians seem to identify contact hitters, which is the exact opposite of what we're talking about. But they tend to identify contact, and they want to try and build the power from there. But they want guys who can put the bat on the ball. And we're still a little early to know how successful they're going to be. They've had mixed results to this point. Owen Miller didn't work out. Stephen Kwan did. We'll see some of the other guys here that fit that profile now of like Tyler Freeman. Does he earn an everyday job? So we'll see. But it's certainly obvious. It feels like that the Guardians are going a different direction than a lot of teams around baseball, just trying to hit the ball out of the park. They seek contact and try and build power from there.
In that same vein, Jason, if you had to bet your life savings on one of these young Guardians bats to develop into a legit middle of the lineup hitter this season, who would you bet on?
Young Guardian bat to develop into a legit middle of the lineup lineup hitter. Like Kyle Manzardo will get there, but I don't know that he's a 30, 35 homer guy. It's tough. It's really tough to sit here. I mean, I was talking to Zach Meisel about it today. If Junior Caminero was still in this organization, he'd be batting third and, playing right field.
Yeah.
And now he's one of Tampa's top prospects, hits the ball over 100 miles an hour every time he hits it. And that's the kind of deal that'll haunt him. Chase DeLauder, I think, has a chance, but he's not going to start up. He's going to start in AAA. I mean, we're not going to see him for a while. I don't know that they do have a guy who you look at right now and circle and say that guy's going to be a legitimate 30 home run threat this summer. I don't see it, and it's the infield's pretty well set. You got Hosey at third. You know what he is. He's obviously not an emerging player though, They got to figure out shortstop between Rocchio and Arias. If Arias, again, Arias sort of falls in that all or nothing category where he's got power, but some of his bat to ball skills are lacking. If he could hit the ball a little bit more consistently and take hold of that job, there's some power in there, but he's yet to really do that. Jimenez at second is fine. I think if ultimately they don't settle on either shortstop and they like Juan Brito best, who they got for Nolan Jones, Brito could be second. They could put him at second and slide Jimenez to short. First is pretty well covered right now with Naylor and eventually Manzardo. And then the outfield is just a crapshoot. It's a lot of bodies, and that's what this spring is for, is to figure out who can play and who can't. Miles Straw's got to compete for the job. Chris Valleca said that he was the first one that I can recall in an official capacity saying on the record, Miles Straw has to win a job this year. He has to compete for his playing time now, whereas before that was never really the case. Estevan Florio, Ramon Laureano, Will Brennan, none of these guys are big-time power hitters who can emerge as middle-of-the-lineup bats. So it's an issue.
Awesome. That's Jason Lloyd from Spring Training. He'll be out there all week. He's on the Ultimate Cav Show tonight at 6. Jason, answer my text on what you want to do for the third topic. Still waiting to hear back from you on that.
It's been a busy day.
That'll be 6 o'clock tonight. Jason, appreciate you as always, and enjoy the sun for us, my friend.
All right. See you guys.